Namo Adida Phat. Thanks so much for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This wonderful sound calls us back to our true home. The fourth mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I vow to cultivate loving speech and deep listening in order to bring joy and happiness to others and to relieve others of their suffering. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I'm determined to speak truthfully with words that inspire self-confidence, joy, and hope. I will not spread news I do not know to be certain, and will not criticize or condemn things of which I am not sure. I will refrain from uttering words that can cause division or discord, or that can cause a family or the community to break. I'm determined to make all efforts to reconcile and resolve all conflicts, however small. For our Dharma lessons, we've been reading More Than Mindfulness, Widening the Field of Practice by the Monastics of the Thai Forest Sangha. We're continuing today in a talk by Ajahn Sundara called Nurturing the Seeds of Dhamma. There is this idea that karma is responsible, that you have been born through your karma. In Buddhism, we say it's very good karma to be born as a human being, because this is a place where one can see suffering and happiness clearly. The two extremes of the mind, the likes and the dislikes, and so on. We're told that if you are a deva and constantly happy, it's very hard to be objective about anything because you just absorb into the happiness. If you are a hell being, you are so miserable that you can't even think clearly. This idea of our non-self nature, anatta, struck me more this time in Thailand. I think we'll all have some sense of this when we start practicing the path. We get into this very disciplined work. We get up early, we meditate, we dedicate our life to the good, etc. There's obviously a terrific confidence in something that we don't always know. Why do we become monks and nuns? We don't always know. Maybe we would say, I have suffered and I wanted to understand what it is all about. This path gives me the potential to be a fairly happy human being by doing something good, both for myself and for others. That's an inspiration to have a way of living that brings good things in this life. It makes you happier. It makes you stronger. It makes you more confident in yourself and in life in general. This aspect of anatta relates with the cause I addressed earlier. We think that we are responsible for what happens to us all the time, and it is the I which is in charge. But what happens is the I is not very strong. It is an entity in us that is often very moody. I can be depressed. I can be happy. I can be up and down. I can be confused, and so on. If you depend on I, which is this illusory entity in ourselves, it's disheartening because it's a very fragile reference point for us. The reference point of the ego, which doesn't even exist when you start looking more deeply at the aspects of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self. You begin to see that you cannot rely on the I for too long. It goes up and down. One night you feel you want to meditate all night. The next night you feel you are a hopeless case and you want to sleep all day. The next night you want to be the best person in the world. And the next day you think that you cannot cope. So relying on I is very uncertain. It is very unstable and unreliable. An aspect which the Buddha encourages us to rely upon is the wisdom of knowing that you need to put in the appropriate cause if you want something to happen. If you want to have a body that has strong muscles, then I need to do a lot of muscle training and gym work. I must put in the necessary causes to make it work. Or there is the topic of good health. These days, people can be so obsessed with good health that they don't realize that their obsessive mind is destroying their health. The mind is more powerful than the body. I was one of them. I'm talking from experience here. So people get obsessed about something which is good, but they don't realize that their mind is in a state of disarray and misery. There is discontent in the mind. It is wanting to be healthy, which is a response to feeling discontented. You haven't got something that you want. So desire is there. It is another force which confuses the mind. What do we do with that? Remember that when the Buddha talks about anatta, he's talking about the fact that what we think about as being me, my personality, myself, my ego, the person in charge in there, is not as real as we think. You begin to look at life in such a way as to say, what will bring about what I need? There are many teachings about that in our Western culture, many philosophical teachings and great minds that have thought about that. Whether in the spiritual world or the Christian and contemplative traditions, they have insight into the knowledge of karma. It's not unknown in our culture. If you want something, you have to really engage with what you need and what you want. This is the reason why meditation is so important. Why? Because meditation is the development of the mind. When you cultivate meditation, you enable your mind to touch into its power. Not the power to float above water or the power to go through walls, but the power to have buoyancy in the mind. We call it awake, being awake. You don't have to have a happy mind all the time. But this buoyancy is another kind of happiness which is not dependent on being happy. I can have buoyancy and energy to look at my negativity. I can have buoyancy and energy to look at my suffering heart, to look at my miserable mind. When you look at that, you begin to have a clearer direction where you want to lead your life. That enables wisdom to manifest, to lead you towards this natural inclination, towards a happy mind, a good mind, a clear mind, a strong mind. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at peace. Namo Adida Phat. Thanks so much for joining me today.